We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And it is the Doomsday Podcast. Another crushing Cowboys loss. They lose 13-9. Boy, they were able to cut it to 4, though. Able to kick that field goal down there, get it to 13-9. And then, because of a tripping penalty, and then because of an overturned call on a catch, it did not work out. Ed Werder has been on the scene in Foxborough, and he has made his way back into Boston this very evening. Ed, you were right in the middle of that pregame, postgame, and it was just spitting the whole game. I don't know. It finally looked like at the very end of the game there wasn't rain, but I mean it seemed like most of the game it was a steady downpour. Walk us through what those elements were like, because I know you had done some good research on Dak's past in performing in weather, and quite honestly, no one was great. Neither of these quarterbacks was great in those elements tonight.
Yeah, that's certainly true, and reflected in the general performances of the quarterbacks and the offensive players as well. The fact that it became a defensive-oriented, weather impacted game certainly played into the hands of the Patriots as the number one defense in football, in total defense, number one in third down defense. And with the Patriots, you have to be aware that they can score in any phase of the game. And the Cowboys painfully experienced that very early on. But the weather was not prohibitive, but it certainly played to the favor of the Patriots. And, I think all the evidence you need about how extreme it was is that Dak Prescott eventually, in the middle of a game, began wearing a glove on his passing hand for the first time in his entire NFL career, now spanning nearly 4 complete seasons. Players don't just make such an abrupt decision unless they feel like they've got no legitimate alternative and it was badly affecting their performance. And so out of desperation, he tried that. He did, I remember, during the bye week practice with a glove, in the anticipation of it possibly being cold when they played the Patriots or at Chicago or at Philadelphia late in the year. That being said, he began the game without the glove and without any intention of using the glove. I had been told the glove was a no-go, but obviously he got to the point where he didn't feel like he could, control the football the way he wanted to. Unless he tried it, and he experimented with it during a game, which to me tells you everything about how difficult the weather made playing quarterback in this game.
Yeah, and it wasn't a great sign that he and Witten, right before one of those key drives at the end, were over there by that heater desperately trying to warm up their hands. And then, of course, Witten, uncharacteristic of him, but he had 2 drops, including a key one late on that as they were trying to get down there and score at the end.
It was really like that all morning, all the way through the game, and it was forecast to be that way, so the Cowboys knew what they were getting into. And I had talked to some people on the coaching staff about whether they had done what Bill Parcells used to do in anticipation of rainy games with Tony Romo and have them do wet ball drills. They did not do that. They felt like the officiating crews take pretty good care of the footballs and try to keep them dry. But obviously that was not the case. They couldn't quite keep up with it today, given how hard it was raining. The wind was certainly a factor in the game, but nothing was a bigger factor in the game, I think, than the coaching. And I think we're going to spend some early time on that.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were adequately prepared for the weather? Did you feel good about what you had on, your gear, your layers, or was the wind a little more than you anticipated?
I made a lot of hard decisions at home looking at the weather forecast, and I ultimately decided that I was going to go with 2 different water repellent jackets rather than like a thermal ball type jacket with a hood. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to be able to cover my head as I was running onto and off the field from inside the stadium to back out to doing my live shots in the morning. And I feel like I made the right decisions in that regard. I also decided not to wear my nice wool slacks. I went with the a kind of a jean material, but an upscale jean sort of thing, and some North Face boots, and I handled it pretty well.
Yeah, no, you're getting good feedback out there. I'm noticing, and
really?
even Belichick had to make some kind of wardrobe change. I believe he went with a heavier coat.
He was just wearing like regular sweatshirt or something in the first half.
Yes.
And I couldn't imagine why he didn't outfit himself better than that unless he was some superstition involved.
Yeah. Well, he had the coat on the second half. All right, we got a lot to get to. Cowboys lose, and boy, Jerry is upset. Ed was able to talk to Jerry. We got some great audio. You'll hear from Jerry Jones. You'll also hear our grades from Glenn Strerch Smith. Frito, play the music, sir. All right, it is the Doomsday Podcast. And, boy, Ed, good news, by the way. Better news than for Cowboys fans tonight. But it looks like we have now done somewhere in the neighborhood of 750,000 downloads of Doomsday Podcasts. So that's a pretty big number. We are tracking toward 1 million. So that's a great thing. And I think that's good timing with our new sponsors, Hudson Financial Group. I mean, that's a great time for them to be a part of us as we approach the big 1 million downloads. I don't know if we get a bunch of money or something yet if we hit 1 million, but let's hope so. Let's hope that happens.
Will we reach the 1 million barrier before Jason Garrett wins his next game?
I don't know. Maybe. I think we got a shot. I definitely think we have a shot at that. All right, let's start with something Jerry brought up. And again, we'll let people hear Jerry here in a little bit. But, Ed, this was usually Jerry's way is more of a passive-aggressive thing. When he wants to criticize the coaches, he praises the other coaches. And he says something like he said tonight. They did a masterful coaching job. That's what he said of Bill Belichick.
You expect to come to New England and get out, coach.
Yes, yes. But and I liked your follow-up to that, by the way. You heard that, and you said, yeah, I understand that, but then you kind of ask another question.
Which I said, yeah, that notwithstanding, what's your confidence level in your own coaching staff?
Yes, and then he gave – but I thought it was interesting that when it came to the special teams aspect of that, Ed, there was no holding back. He just basically came out and said, hey, that's 100%. That's 100% coaching. I mean, and there were a lot of special teams failures today. If I'm O'Quinn, I would have been hustling to get on that bus and try to get on out of there because that's as close as you'll ever hear Jerry come to just basically calling out a coach on his staff.
Well, and while you're right, and he was specific in his criticism of the special teams, and he did say it's 100% coaching, 100% of the ultimate responsibility for the special teams, just like it is the offense and the defense, is the head coach. And, Jerry, you put his criticism tonight, which was very uncharacteristic. Jerry described himself as disappointed and frustrated, and then he criticized Jason Garrett and his coaching staff very directly. Like you said, he almost never does that. He typically does prefer a passive-aggressive approach where he praises the opposing coach, but that wasn't the case this time. And, the special teams failures have been persistent, and in this game included a block punt that led to the game's only touchdown on a 12-yard possession by the Patriots. And so while Keith O'Quinn is certainly directly indicted, so is head coach Jason Garrett. And keep in mind, the Cowboys deliberately went into this season not renewing Jason Garrett's contract, putting him in a situation that they said they thought he would respond favorably to because he had before, working the last year of his deal, knowing he did not have any long-term security, and effectively saying, we expect to take the next step. And I thought Jerry finished very strongly tonight. He said that it's frustrating to be reminded that some of the fundamentals of football and coaching were what beat us out there today. And then he said the Cowboys were outcoached. He said they shouldn't have put themselves in a position where they had to win in New England, where almost nobody does. And then he finished with this condemnation, quote, with the makeup of this team, I shouldn't be this frustrated. That's basically saying, with all the money I've spent, with all the talent we've accumulated, we should not be 6-5 and desperate to win in New England.
Yeah, and he started to hearken back a little bit to that Jets game, some opportunities they had that put them in this situation to where they desperately needed to take advantage of this opportunity. And, boy, you're right, though. That was a damning statement. He also, made the statement, and we'll let you hear it in a minute. In fact, I'll hold off on that. But just so many things about the coaching staff that you just don't normally hear from Jerry. But, I mean, there was some anger. And, isn't it interesting? This seems like when you play a great team, a Super Bowl, a dynasty like New England, this seems like at a time when Jerry would be more like, hey, we knew there was a chance we could come up here to a great team and get beat. This seemed like maybe it would be more along those lines. That's not what he was saying at all. It's not like he didn't give them their due, but he was let down. He was really, really disappointed and frustrated on a lot of levels. In fact, probably more than any game this season. And,
Yeah. Even worse than losing to the winless Jets like they did. And like he said, and it's a fair point, everybody gets outcoached in New England. That's not unusual. But you can't let that be the deciding factor in the game. And when you come to New England, a place where the Patriots have, obviously won 6 Super Bowl titles under the current head coach and the current quarterback, and you come here and their only touchdown is on a 12-yard drive following a blocked punt, and they don't have a scoring possession that covers more than 38 yards in the game, and you hold them to 13 points, you have a chance to win that game, you have to win that game, not back away from the opportunity like Jason Garrett did. I mean, this guy has had a problem with managing games throughout his career, and Jerry's response has always been, we've made such an enormous investment in this guy over the years that we need to benefit from that experience, and they're not. He keeps repeating the mistakes. I mean, for Troy Aikman, who is very close to Jason Garrett, former teammates with Jason Garrett, good friend of his, big advocate of his, when he is on national television and the Cowboys are facing 4th and 7 on the 11-yard line in a 13-6 game, and Garrett decides to kick a field goal, and Aikman says he would have gone for the touchdown there, and Babe Laufenberg says the same thing as a friend of Jason Garrett's. I think all of that resonates with Jerry about just how wrong that was. Like, I think if Garrett, shows some courage there and goes for it and doesn't get it and loses, that's a whole different thing.
Yes.
At least he took his best shot. He didn't take his best shot. He needed a touchdown still, even after he kicked the field goal. What he did was completely nonsensical. You had not scored a touchdown in 54 minutes of the game against the number 1 defense in football. And if you're fortunate enough to get the ball back from Tom Brady, which, by the way, they did, but on their own, 8-yard line because of another special teams gaffe, you just didn't give your team the best chance to win. What were the chances you were going to score a touchdown from 91, 92 yards out in the final 4 minutes when you hadn't scored a touchdown all day long? And I think only one team in the last several years, Philadelphia, has had a 91-yard drive against that defense. So he totally mishandled that whole situation and left himself open to all kinds of criticism. And don't think that wasn't specifically on Jerry's mind when he decided to call out the coaches, even though he may have mainly laid it off on the special teams, which, by the way, certainly deserve to be criticized.
Yeah. No, I think that's. I think it's well said, and we at times have seen him go against what we think is his DNA. He's got a very conservative approach most of the time, but you're right that 13, making it 13-9, just seemed to go against everything that game was telling you to do. How often? When are you going to be back down here? Are you really going to have another shot? It's almost kind of like he's thinking back to like all the great moments. I mean, he seems like one of those coaches who sort of makes decisions on best case scenarios. Like, oh, wait, you remember we can be really good sometimes. Well, this whole day you have not put one in the end zone. And you've been
I think only one time had they been closer than they were in that moment. I think they'd gotten to the 8 and kicked the field goal. So this was the second time in the entire game they had been as close as the 11-yard line. And obviously, just like they did against the Vikings, they turned it into a bad situation. They had 2nd and 7, and they turned it into 4th and 7, and they missed the throw in the back of the end zone. Dak Prescott obviously knows better and would not criticize his head coach and the strategy that he employed in that circumstance. He took his share of the responsibility by saying, look, in that situation, game on the line, I want the ball in my hands to decide the outcome of the game. So he did not criticize the head coach. And Garrett explained his decision-making by saying that he just did not think that 4th and 7 was a manageable enough situation. And he obviously seemed to believe that his decision, though obviously flawed and wrong in the minds of almost everybody, that he believed it was validated when they were able to get the ball back for one final possession.
Yeah, that made it the right call, but we saw the results of that, and then of course the tripping penalties, which Ed, we both know. And we've talked about some of the officiating this year. That thing is being, I'm sure you've had a chance to see some replays of both those calls, but just
terrible calls.
Horrible calls.
Monstrous.
And
had to have been that Belichick or somebody with the coaching staff pointed that out to the officiating crew, and they were looking for it, but they were looking and they weren't seeing it, and they flagged them twice anyway.
But it's probably not a good look for the Cowboys players. I don't know if you've noticed this now. Jalen Smith, there was another player. A couple of the players are now putting it out there. I think DeMarcus Lawrence, #tripping or tripping and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So now they're taking to social media.
That's the reason they lost.
Yeah, you want to let everybody else say that. You don't want to be the players, also saying the whole tripping thing. But it was those were, again, this whole officiating thing, they have just embarrassed themselves this year in a lot of ways, and that caused further embarrassment. And again, we don't know if the Cowboys were going to go down there and score and win the game, but it would have been interesting to let it play out because that was going to be a first down, and we would have seen, could Dak, in that huge moment, take it down there? Now, something you said earlier, Ed, before we hear from Jerry, that I would say is as damning as anything. At halftime, and Gronk was kind of being funny, but he was also being kind of serious about how Belichick constantly dips the balls in water, takes them out in rain, puts them in these horrible conditions so that, and maybe it is, they do play in it more, but knowing it could have been ugly in New England, the fact that the Cowboys chose not to do that, and then it really backfired when you got a quarterback basically trying to use a glove for the first time because he feels so compromised in that cold. And,
yeah.
I mean, you've covered Aikman all those years. Aikman was kind of known for struggling with a wet ball at times. I mean, it's just maddening that they wouldn't do – you can't manufacture and go out and make it, 32 degrees all the time, but there are things you can do with the wet ball, that kind of thing. We've seen Romo perform pretty well in Chicago in sub-freezing temperatures in those kinds of environments, and it looked like this team was woefully unprepared for those elements, or at least this quarterback was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. You can't put only so much blame on him, but I think it's noteworthy that he doesn't complete a single pass to Amari Cooper for the first time in Cooper's 20 games in a Cowboys uniform. You pointed out the drop balls by a normally reliable Jason Witten. They weren't ever able to really effectively establish Ezekiel Elliott in the run game. He didn't have any big plays in that phase of the game. They really don't even ever seem to try and get him outside the tackle box anymore. I mean, to me, that used to be a staple of what they did well, was get him outside in a one-on-one type of situation. And there was just no effort to do that. But they just really botched the game themselves. And, I reminded, as I was watching the game, I'd gone out to the Star this week and talked to some players. And two things that really resonated with what was said in the locker room before the game in the middle of the week as they prepared that really played out and deciding, sort of describing the outcome of the game. And it was Travis Frederick said, the best way to win in the NFL is to take advantage when the opponent makes a mistake. It's really about who makes the least number of mistakes rather than who is dominant. And Connor Williams said of the Patriots, they make you beat yourself. I mean, and that's those two guys just described exactly what would happen to the Cowboys a few days later in Foxborough.
Yeah, and I feel like the last time they were up there when they did lose, they got beat, 16-10 or something like that? I mean, it's just like It's almost like self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, they're just going to go up there and kind of play into the elements, not prepare for it like they should have.
Yeah, and I addressed that with some of the coaches, and that responding sort of to keeping in mind what I just read to you from those two offensive linemen, I started to get the sense that, oh man, Garrett's going to go up there, and he's going to be ultra conservative because that's his nature, and he's going to try and be careful and not be what they've been all year long. And a couple of the coaches said, we've gotten that sense, and we've told Dak not to do that. Like, be who you are, play the way we play. We're not gonna give in to the mystique and change our approach to the game. Now, the weather may have ultimately forced them to do just the opposite of that. But I think that was their mindset going into the game. And I think it's worth noting, and I probably should have said this earlier, Dak Prescott was 4-1 as a Cowboys quarterback in games where the temperature was under 50 degrees. It was 38 at kickoff today. So he's had some success in those situations, although he played in a game in Washington in 2017 where it rained incredibly hard the second half. He was like 5 for 12, and afterward he complained about how slippery the ball was, how heavy it was, which again kind of goes back to, well, why aren't you preparing for that possibility during the course of the week?
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm glad you hit on that, and I'm glad you asked all those questions. And that, boy, it was a really telling deal when you saw Dak over there trying to slip that glove on. It sort of took me back to a courtroom from years ago, but I won't get into that. I do want to say this before we, Ed, get into talking, and we'll hear from Jerry Jones, Hudson Financial Group. Ed, I know you're as pleased as I am. They've come on board with us. Randy Hudson, 4-year letterman, University of North Texas, back in the 80s. The man could block. I mean, he may have had a couple of tripping penalties, but I don't think so. But he found a way, and the man took care of the quarterback's blind side back in the day. Now he takes care of your financial blind side. And, Ed, one of the things that I love about what they do, you may start talking to Hudson Financial Group about, like, your insurance needs. Some of these companies want to know about property casualty insurance, all those kinds of things. But it's very organic. Pretty quickly after that, it moves into, okay, let us help you with all your finances. Okay, let's come up with a comprehensive financial plan. Ed, I mean, you're still a young man. But, there may be a time, you're still, you're kind of hanging in there in the 50s. You're not 60. But estate planning may be something you need to think about at some point in your lifetime, and Hudson Financial Group does all of those things. Now, here's how you find them on Facebook. HFG Ventures, / Hudson Financial Group. And that's how you find them on Facebook. You can also call 469-402-0320. And the CEO, Randy Hudson, president, great friend of mine, and he is a guy, you'll get to know him. It's not like, hey, we're going to put you with somebody, you'll never meet the CEO. No, you'll meet him, and you don't have to be at the Ed Werder level, financial level, to get to meet him. All right, Ed, let's do this. You brought back some really, really fine audio, and I listened to it immediately. And this is, Jerry's always pretty entertaining and interesting after games. This is, if you kind of want to know where Jerry's head is right now, Ed, I'll let you set this up. I want you to kind of tell us what Jerry, sometimes even after losses, he's still in a visibly, decent mood. He's still able to smile. He can even crack a joke. But this did not seem to be that type of Jerry. What was the kind of atmosphere around Jerry as he delivered what we're about to hear?
Well, first of all, it wasn't like games at AT&T Stadium where he comes out and he's standing in front of the locker room door, so you have to walk past him to go to the players. It was a little bit down the hall and off to the side in a private room, and Jerry could have very easily left the stadium as he did in Detroit without speaking to the media, knowing, of course, that there were going to be a lot of questions asked about the coaching staff because he obviously had them in his own mind. So he made a deliberate decision, in my mind, to make a statement about the coaching staff today. And I think there's significance to that. I would suggest that if the Minnesota game and all of the questions that were created by the miscommunications that took place in that loss and the play calling that squandered their last opportunity to win that game hadn't happened, then maybe we would say this is the beginning of the end here. So Jerry was very serious. He was straight to the point. He was not reluctant to give his point of view, and most surprisingly, he was not loath to criticize his coaching staff.
All right, here it is. Jerry Jones in the aftermath of the Cowboys' 13-9 loss.
We knew it was going to be a challenge for us offensively, and that it was. Probably exacerbated a little bit because of the conditions, but I think we've got a mud or two in Dak. He's had a lot of weather games, not necessarily with Cowboys, but in his collegiate career. So I felt good about it. It is a significant setback for our team. We needed this win. We needed to win against an opponent like this. We haven't had them, and consequently we're very aware of that. And so we dig a hole that we've got to really have a challenge as we look at the rest of the schedule. But I thought that I'm surprised that we didn't get touchdown and get to score touchdowns even in the weather. I thought our defense played well, but that's not their strength either. This year is their offense, and so it didn't surprise me to see us play well. Surprised me to see us really take the setbacks we took in special teams.
You mentioned not scoring touchdowns. What did you feel about the decision to kick the field goal on 4th and 7 late in the game?
Well, when it was fourth down and long, after the leg tripping calls. Was it?
Oh, this would have been
4th and 7.
When was it? 7 when you kicked the field goal in the red zone.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to second guess the calls at this particular time in that area, but that at the end of the day, we just got ourselves in this spot of where we need to win a game like this, and you come into New England at this time where these Patriots are, how well they play here, and how acclimated they are to weather. You've really dug your hole back when you were playing the Jets and back when you were playing those guys, when you really look at it. So while we're disappointed, we would like to have had some of those plays go our way. That's what you get.
Why do you think you're struggling winning?
What?
Why do you think you're struggling beating a team that's got a winning record this year?
Well, let's give New England at home a real lot to say about how come we didn't win out here today. But I think we are when we run up against an opponent that gets it together. We have tough time coordinating how we put our offense and our defense out there and have them playing excellent both at the same time. And we also know that special teams, when you've got the ability to get in here and kind of understand that when you're on a sloppy day, special teams can rule the day. And they've got a coach that knows how to play this game and did a good job of that. My hat's off to it.
Special teams have been a problem all year, and it seems like they're targeting your special teams. They figure they can get some done on you. What's been your problem with special teams?
Well, I think that it's every aspect of special teams, when you really look at it, have been problematic for us. There's no question about that.
Jerry, they have the best defense in the league, but you came in with the best offense. How surprised were you Amari had no catches?
Well, I give their corner a lot of credit. I think we all respect what Amari is as a receiver, so I do give him a lot of credit. I didn't think that he could do that well against him, but he did, and it had a big factor in this game.
Jerry, what did you see on that tripping call?
What?
What did you see on the tripping call?
Well, I see the definition of whether you've got whether you've made a move and got your toe down, whether it's tripping or not, and again. I don't want to go to those particular 2 tripping calls, if you will. I don't want to go to that. We had plenty of opportunities to establish ourselves in all phases of the ball. And they won the special teams part really good. I think defensively it speaks for themselves. They took it to us. And certainly without a touchdown, that speaks highly of it, but speaks enough for it. But I think, again, where my statements go is that when you come into New England on a day like today against this team in this era, and you need to win this to establish what you're about for a season, you've dealt yourself up a pretty narrow window to come out of here smiling. And we got what we've set up by virtue of a lot of the things we haven't done before we got here.
When you look at the mistakes, do you think they outcoached the Cowboys?
Well, again, I really think it speaks for themselves. I think we just look at what happened on special teams and how they. I think you're going to get out coached when you come to during this era when you come into New England. I do. I think you are, and I give him his. Not due there, but it's just what you're dealing with. But my point is, don't get yourself in a spot to where you have to come up here and beat him and beat them on a day like today. Don't get in a spot with that determining what you want to be about, with that determining where you're going. Now, we're fortunate. Philadelphia got beat today, and we've got a chance to really step up here and do this. But I want to see us coordinate our defense, offense, and special teams. We need to, as a whole team, coordinate a complete if you will, balanced. Not balance isn't the word for it, but I want to see a winning game out of all of those guys acting a little bit in coordination and unison.
Will you talk to Jason?
And I'm disappointed we didn't do that today.
Will you talk to Jason at all when you get back about just what you said, coordinate and just get everybody on the same page?
I talk every week. With a lot of people in our organization about how we played and what we did or what we didn't do. Make no mistake about it. This was a bigger game for us than it was for the Patriots on the win column. And we had a chance to really establish something. And there's no gratification here in sitting here and being down to the last drive of determining maybe the outcome of the game. That's not the point. You can't be satisfied with how we got out there. I don't care if it is New England this year with their record and their coach and all that. You can't be satisfied just because you got within the last drive to maybe go ahead. You know, you can have all kinds of conjecture. Then I turned right back around, scored, and there you were. So the point is that I'm just really frustrated with. I thought we could come up here and really put together a better effort in all three phases. I expect us to play well against them defensively.
I know you.
So we got what I think we should have expected out of our defense, and but the other phases of the game, we've got to. We can't come up here and play like that.
Because of what happened today, do you feel like you got to win out to achieve your goals to get to the tournament?
Well, I don't know. It has a lot to do with what Philadelphia does, of course, but certainly I assume we are. We're still in the lead, but. We don't have our feet up under us the way that a win here, taking it under our belt and taking it down the field in the last possession of really when we had some time would have given us. And so we had opportunity here to gel. We had opportunity here to do some things against a really outstanding organization, outstanding team in a rough situation, and we just didn't get there. That's disappointing, and I'm reflecting it.
How would you assess what Dak did today on Arena Day?
Excuse me?
What's your confidence level in your coaching staff? It's fair to suggest you could get out coach here. Everybody does. But
exactly.
Some of the criticism you had about different phases of the team and how it's performed.
Exactly. I don't think there's a game that a coaching staff has areas that it couldn't do better in. And I just don't like it that we've got so many as I'm standing here tonight.
Jason's been on the job 10 years now, and you seem frustrated by kind of what you're seeing here, your team not getting all three phases ready to go and having opportunities to actually be in a position to win a game that you can't close. I mean, it was 2011 you guys were here and you were right there and ended up losing the game.
The 10-year thing does not have anything to do, in my mind, have any bearing on what we're doing or not doing. And it says it should be. And the staff, they're bringing it with what they've got right now, accumulation of what they're supposed to have gotten after 10 years and what they're bringing to the table with all their education, experience, and everything. They're bringing it right out here right now. And we played one of the best, and we're playing a lot of experience out there today, and we came up short. That's frustrating.
How would you assess Dak's performance on a rainy day today?
Well, I think Dak, frankly, I'd say we didn't have had the one interception, and that was surprising, but in general, he did what I thought he would do, and that is not protect the ball. He did that. I was surprised that if I really thought Zeke would have an exceptional day with the makeup of New England. But to their credit, they held him in check, and I was a little surprised. We had some plays key plays that two in particular got called back, but they did too. So let's just leave it at that. But I am very disappointed and frustrating with not being able to put it together enough to as tight a game as we had them, as close as we had. We all would have liked to have gotten this done because of the impact it has on the rest of the season.
What's the confidence that you can have going into the final 5 games then? If you feel this way now, how can it get coordinated?
Well, how I feel and how we step out and how we get ready Thanksgiving Day and play the Bills and how we do that, we're not talking about the same thing. How I feel here. I'm frustrated. This was an important game for us to win. We all saw why we didn't win it, and that's very frustrating. We have a lot of things we wanted to show up for. The quality of our opponent was tops. Quality of, but they were certainly a team that we can beat and should be beatable. And I'm disappointed we didn't get it done.
The special teams issue?
And it was pretty glaring as to why we couldn't get it done.
All right, there he was, and boy, just a lot of interesting quotes, a lot to unpack there, and I thought Ed, you set it up nicely there. As we begin to think about the rest of the season, the Eagles obviously lose today, and they fall to 5-6. Cowboys sit now at 6-5, heading into this Thanksgiving Day game, and I tell you, Ed, this is. They're fortunate to still have an opportunity that they play in such a poor division, and but there's still a great shot that going to Philly could come down to something. Could be could be for the division title, and so a lot to think about. Before we get all to that, to the big picture, Ed, what did you? How much credit should we give the defense? And we'll hear from Glenn Stretch Smith in a moment. But how much should we credit the defense for keeping the Cowboys in this game, and how much of it do you think had to do more with the elements?
I mean, here's what I think. I think like I said, the elements definitely made this a defensive field position emphasis game. That being said, the Patriots are not a good offensive team, especially not at the moment. While they did get Neal back, their rookie receiver, and he made the touchdown catch in the game, and they got Isaiah Wynn back at left tackle, their first-round pick last year. This is not a good offensive team. There's a reason that Tom Brady has been mad all year long, and it's that he knows that this is a very limited offense. They're not going to drive the field and score on you. And so that's why it's so egregious for the Cowboys to do exactly what they did and give them points off short possessions early in the game and put themselves 10 points behind. Patriots have won 33 straight games when they've had a 10-point or more lead. And the Cowboys staked them to a 10-0 lead by getting a punt blocked and giving up a 12-yard touchdown possession, and then another short possession, 3 yards for a field goal. They're behind 10-0. So another slow start. Patriots put a lot of emphasis on that. The defense did nothing to create for their offense what the Patriots did for theirs. And the Patriots are just, here's what I'm going to say. The Patriots do not have the talent of a 10-1 team. They just don't. And the Cowboys don't have the talent to be 6-5. The Cowboys should be a lot better than their record is, and the Patriots shouldn't be as good as their record is. And I think that's another thing that Jerry looks at, and it irks him. But the defense, again, no turnovers. I mean, they force some punts, but they just don't do anything to flip the field. They don't make any big plays. Jeff Heath made a nice play to break up a pass and gave himself up physically to do it with a shoulder that was already injured. But I just don't know how you can be all that impressed with this defense because the offense they were going against is just not that good.
Yeah, to your point, the Patriots, boy, they will step on your throat in a hurry, and Cowboys did have some opportunities in that second half, but coming into today, Ed, 98-1. This sounds like a Werder number, but 98-1 when leading at the half.
Look, here's the thing. Here's the thing you have to know about the Patriots when you come to play the Patriots. They can score in any phase of the game, so you need to have your players be aware on every snap in the game. There have been 8 punts in the NFL that have been blocked. The Patriots have 3 of them. The Patriots came into the game with exactly the same number of touchdowns as Dallas. Each team had 34 touchdowns. The difference was the Cowboys had 34 of theirs scored on offense, only 1 by the defense. The Patriots had 2 special teams touchdowns and 4 defensive touchdowns. So the Patriots can score in any phase of the game. The Cowboys can really only score in 1. And the Patriots made that pay off. Their resourcefulness paid off today. Being the better coach team paid off today. Like I said, I think coaching matters, and the Patriots don't have the talent to be 10-1, but that's what they are. And as one general manager in the NFL told me about Jason Garrett a year or 2 ago, he said, quote, "A coach who only wins the number of games equal to the talent level of his players has no value himself." Pretty profound.
Yeah, I would say so. Although reports today, we continue to hear that the New York Giants, if Jason were on the if they became a free agent, the New York Giants would snap him up in a minute. And I think Cowboys fans would be just fine with that. They would love it, for him to stay in the division, but just be the coach of a different team. Did you see that, Ed? I know there've been a few stories about that this season. What do you make of the fact?
I've seen the rumor. I think I don't know what real credibility it has. It makes sense given Garrett's history with the Giants organization. He's from New Jersey. His family's from New Jersey. And obviously, I assume he'd want to continue being a head coach in the NFL, and it'd probably be, it's a flagship franchise. They've got a cornerstone running back and a wide receiver or a quarterback that they've drafted high and invested a lot in, and I'm sure that would be alluring to Garrett, and playing in a division that he knows pretty well would probably also be something that would entice him to consider it. But I don't know how much of it is just those factors being calculated and taken as a whole, and how much of it is there's conversation between the two. I can't imagine Jason Garrett would act with any inappropriate manner while he's under contract to the Cowboys and not unknowing of his future, unless Jerry's told him he's going to fire him at the end of the year.
All right, some of our most ardent listeners and some of our biggest supporters have asked us to at least throw out one name. They're dying to hear us discuss who could replace Jason Garrett at the end of this season, especially the aftermath of this one where he looked really bad in the shadow of Bill Belichick. And so, Ed, if it were to happen today, or if it happens after this season, and you had to throw out a name as a possible Cowboys candidate, which way do you think Jerry would be thinking at this very minute?
I have to think that Lincoln Riley would be the first name on his list, but I would consider the Patriots offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, who I think has done an outstanding job. There's obviously issues with him, and one of the most recent of those is people don't know how reluctant or how willing he really is to leave the Patriots because he'd probably be the next Patriots head coach. But he also knows that that's not going to happen until Tom Brady retires, and now they don't have their next quarterback. But, he kind of walked out on the last minute after taking the job in Indianapolis, so that would be something he would have to overcome. But in terms of just coaching ability, I certainly would advocate that he be considered, and I think Lincoln Riley's an obvious fit.
Okay, two names there. I'll just go with Urban. I think Jerry would. He's dying to throw out a big name, a big splash move. It won't happen, I don't think. But Urban Meyer, it is hard for a guy that's won at that level. It is hard for the ego. Now, he may get the Notre Dame job, but I'm just saying he would at least be in the mix. All right.
And if Lincoln Riley went to Dallas, I think Urban Meyer might get the Oklahoma job or want the Oklahoma job.
Yeah, it could happen. Also, they could hire another former Oklahoma coach who would be right here in our own backyard in Bob Stoops. They did it with Switzer, and Stoops is quite honestly would be, I think, much better equipped to be be a head coach of the NFL than Switzer was at the time they brought him in.
Not sure he'd be inheriting quite the team that Barry inherited.
True, that is.
But Jerry does have a history. In fact, all three of the Super Bowls that he's won as the owner have come from guys who had no pro experience and went to the NFL and were successful. Obviously, you can debate how much credit Barry deserves, but I'll give him what he said was the minimum, which is at least he didn't screw it up. And he's right. He didn't screw it up, and he's right when he says some people probably would have screwed it up.
Yeah, I think that is accurate, including maybe this current head coach. All right, it is time to talk to Glenn Stretch Smith. He gives his stretch marks. He is preparing to be on with Del Hansen, WFAA. He's the former Cowboys scout and coach, and he returns to the Doomsday Podcast. And Stretch, this was a tough one. It's a tough one. Cowboys lose 13-9 on the road. Jerry was as dejected as he's been all season. He wanted this one. He felt like it meant everything to the Cowboys. They could not get it done. First of all, start with the elements. I mean, how much do you think just the awful rain, the cold, all of that? How big of a role do you think that played in the Cowboys not finding the end zone in this game?
Well, I think it's a huge role. I mean, I think when you practice all the time in perfect conditions, I mean, I don't know how often they go outside when they have, they've got that unbelievable facility at the Star. I mean, how often do they throw into that wind was 30, 35 miles an hour. I mean, that's going to affect the football game. It's going to affect how the ball flies, and it affects them on both sides. That's why it surprised me a little bit that Jerry came in and said they were out-coached. I mean, I don't think they were out-coached. Out-coached where? I mean, I didn't see that in the football game. As I watched it, as I let it unfold, as I've looked back at it, as I pulled the plays for the highlights I'm going to run tonight, I don't see being out-coached. I didn't see that. So I think that was a little surprising to me. I do think that there were some areas that they were deficient in, and certainly we'll talk about those as we put the grades on these guys. But I mean, I don't think it was one of those things where you say that Bill Belichick absolutely out-coached Jason Garrett. I didn't see that. I thought the elements played a huge factor in the football game.
Well, and Jerry came out and used the words, they did a masterful job coaching. So obviously he believes that anytime you go in there, you're already in trouble when Bill Belichick's on the other side. Let's start with a place. You've been on this the entire season, and it really, I think you noticed it before anybody else, and you think I'm going one way, but I'm actually going another. Let's start with the special teams. and I'm telling you, this is a problem. And we see, most teams on a windy day. Guess what? If you kick into the wind, you may have to field a kickoff. You may have to return one. It may bounce. You may have to kind of move up a little bit. They were not able to do it. And in Strerch, this continues to be a major issue for this team. And they had a punt blocked, which obviously led to a New England's only touchdown.
Correct, and that's. I mean, you make the right point. I mean, when you see they're kicking the football off. When the kicker doesn't take a full run at the ball, what would make you think you needed to line up on the end zone line, or even 2 yards deep? I mean, and at some point you got to be a football player. I mean, Schultz had one. It hit him right in the hands, and he acted like he had never seen anything like that before. I mean, it split his hands. It's and then Pollard, he's got to move up when you see that they're going to pooch the ball. Now, if I been the special teams coach, I'd have been screaming, move up. And then they have to take a timeout, and the response from Jason was, well, we didn't see a return guy back there. What is that? You got to see a return guy before you can punt the damn ball? Unbelievable. I mean, maybe next time or maybe next year, Jason, why don't you call Belichick and say, hey, at some point in the game, just for craps and giggles, are you not going to put a punt returner back there? Because if you are, we're going to have to take a damn timeout. We don't know what to do. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, when you got 11 guys in there, you bring the two wideouts in, and you have a tight punt and you punt the ball. But I mean, it was as if they had never seen anything like that before. And I mean, if you want to call that being out-coached, I mean, I don't think that's out-coached. Line up and kick the damn ball. It's not that difficult. Or if they've got 11 guys down in there, bring your two gunners inside, get a hat on a hat, and get the ball off. I mean, that's the only thing that frustrated me really when you think about the coaching side of it. And then obviously, Thomas gets his shoulder turned, and they get the block, which you got to do a better job. I mean, it's the oldest saying in the book. Hey, you got to shuffle, widen, and go when you're protecting for a punt. I mean, he gets his shoulder turned and gets the punt blocked. I mean, they couldn't adjust. They had to take a timeout. I tell you, it was a comedy of errors, and because of that, not only are they getting an F. Have you ever heard of an F plus? That's what they're getting, F plus on special teams.
An F plus for the
and the damn special teams coordinator. He'd have flown commercially on the way home. He wouldn't have been on the flight.
Boy, I tell you would just let him go right now, and I understand that. So F plus, man, that's a new one. That is a new one right there, and interesting for the special teams. Let's start on the defense, and this is another area where you were first to the party on this. You have been down on these cornerbacks for much of the season. Also, some of the safety play as well. What'd you make of the DB's performance in a day where Tom Brady didn't accomplish a whole lot, but obviously they had some deficiencies there?
Yeah, and hey, I'm going to say glad to see Jeff Heath back there. I mean, he made a couple of really nice plays. So let's start with the positive. I thought he broke a few balls up, and I mean, obviously, I never thought I'd say like last week that, man, do I miss Jeff Heath. I miss Jeff Heath. It was good to see him back in there. The corners, guys, I'm just telling you, it is maddening to watch them be in position with their feet and not be able to get their hand on the ball. And it doesn't matter which one it is. Awuzie, Byron. I mean, Byron's right in place when they throw the only touchdown of the game to the big hairy kid. They can't make a play. I mean, just put your hand up and make a play on the ball. Secondary play, if Jeff Heath doesn't pull them out of it, they're going to get an F, and I'm barely giving that group a C because I thought Jeff Heath did a heck of a job. I mean, Awuzie tackling, sloppy. He's just, I mean, I'm telling you, these two corners are really what is right now what's hurting this football team. It really is. It's their weakest link. We can say, and we pointed to it all year on the podcast, Matt. We can say corners and special teams play. We've talked about it every week. I'm barely giving them a C because of the job that Jeff Heath did.
Yeah, in Jordan Lewis, he had his moments, and in there.
I'm not so sure, Matt. He's not the best corner cover guy.
You might be right.
Really not.
Yeah.
We talked about that in the pre-show. I mean, I really think that he may be the best true cover guy. Now, I understand they're worried about his size, and would he get in? Would he be a nightmare for you down in the red zone and possibly against fades? Yes, he would. But, I mean, as far as man coverage, as far as covering underneath routes and understanding, I'm not sure he's not the best corner.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. You've been all over that story. Let's look at these linebackers. Sean Lee, whether it was Burkhead, they tried to get him in some mismatches. He did miss a couple of tackles that really were problematic. What'd you make of the linebacker play?
Well, I thought the front seven played well. I really did. I mean, I thought Sean Lee played well, and they tried to match him up and thought they had the mismatch there. But quite frankly, I mean, Sean Lee was there. He was in coverage. I mean, Jalen made some plays. Linebackers wise, I thought you got a solid game from those guys, and I'm giving those guys a B.
B for the linebackers, and then also, what about up front?
Up front, I initially you see some good things, but then it's almost like I don't know if they're overcoached or what happens, but there were 3 or 4 times that they were trying to run those inside stunts, and it was like they all just got wadded up in there. I mean, it was a really ugly-looking pass rush, and that kept that group from getting an A. I mean, their stunts and what they were doing was sloppy at times, but they did a great job with their 4-man pressures. They even, they had some zone drops a couple of times. Well, they only brought 3, dropped the guy out. I thought the defensive line played about as good outside of the 4 snaps where they were running some stunts that got kind of wadded up in there. I mean, played as good as they played all year. I'm going to give that group a B+.
And it looked like Bennett had a little something extra in him, going back to a place where he just came from. He was traded for like a 7th-round pick, I believe it was.
Yeah, heck of a read and recognize on that when they tried to throw that screen out there. He's a smart football player, so. That is not an issue. That's not a concern right now. The defensive line is a solid group for this football team, and you can win with that group.
All right, over on the offense, let's look at the O-line. Obviously it was kind of an uneven day. They had some success in the running game at times. Didn't really seem to stick with that, and then of course the 2 tripping penalties. Neither one of them really seemed to make much sense. And even Aikman, you could tell he was he couldn't believe Pereira even tried to speak to the one against Frederick being an actual penalty. I mean, he was aghast that Pereira would even try to see that, and almost that smack to me, Strerch, of the Patriots putting the officials onto that, like somebody saying, "You guys need to be looking for this."
Yeah, you're correct in what you're saying. That I would say that's exactly what happened, because, quite frankly, I think that had been called before today. That had been called 7 times in the entire league for the season, and you got 2 today. Horrible calls. I'm going to tell you this: when you're coaching the inside guy, when you're running those stunts, and when your guy goes away, you are taught you get your feet back in the ground immediately and you get square, because somebody's coming your way. If your man stunts inside, there's somebody looping around outside. If your guy loops inside, you got to stay square because there's a guy coming inside. You can't let him get your shoulder. On the one for Travis Frederick, he's uncovered, Matt, and he drops as an uncovered because there's a guy over each guard. He doesn't know which guy is going to stunt into the A gap. There's going to be one of them, but he doesn't know which one. So he has to go back and stay square in anticipation of both of those guys coming while he's got his eyes and his head on a swivel looking inside. Both of them are terrible calls in critical times of the game, but I thought the offensive line really played pretty well. I mean, on the screen pass, they got out. I mean, I thought all things really considered today, a B+ by the offensive line, and 2 terrible calls, and I'm not swearing because Ed would be disappointed in me, but I'll give you the initials. HS is what them 2 calls were, and the first word is horse. Not good calls.
HS calls, we're going with that. Wide receivers and tight ends. Obviously, until late in the game, wide receivers just did not have much of an impact on this game. They took Amari Cooper out of the game, and then Jason Witten, who's had his moments this year, but quite frankly just did not get it done today.
Yeah, he had 2 drops. I mean, uncomfortable again with the wind, the wet. Jarwin catches the option. The first series doesn't spit it up the field and try to get the first down. He fumbled it. It did bounce back up to him, but tight ends just played okay. They blocked okay on the end of the line of scrimmage. The receivers, I didn't see much from Cooper. It's starting to bother me, the difference of how he plays at home versus on the road. And I'm not pointing just at this game. I'm pointing overall. I thought Cobb played okay. I thought Gallup played okay. I mean, the New England's, the strength of their football team is their secondary, and you could tell that. I mean, they played man coverage. Now, it's unfortunate that the conditions were the way they were, because I think that the Cowboys would have had some opportunity to push the ball down the field in a dry situation. I don't ding the receivers that much in this situation, Matt. And I mean, overall, I give that group a B-.
All right, and looking back at the quarterback, I mean, I know you probably love that option over there, the short side of the field.
Especially when you go pitch it off a guy that you're blocking into a damn blow-up. Yeah, wasn't that good looking?
That was a beautiful. I thought that was a well-designed play.
Yeah, it was well designed, and I mean, there's another one that'll get you saying some words that'll make a sailor blush. But I mean, Dak, he was not comfortable in those conditions. He went and put the glove on. I thought he made a couple of good throws late in the game. Early in the game, those critical throws, though, I mean, he's got the 2-yard flat to Cobb that he misses. He missed a slant. I think you've got, when you're the guy that wants to make the kind of money that he wants to make, you got to make those throws. And so I'm going to ding him a little bit for that, where I'm going to talk positive about the throws that he made late in the game. But overall, I mean, really, what I felt like was about a B-, experience for him. I think he had a 60-something quarterback rating. That's not good enough to win, and he'll tell you he's got to play better than that. Running backs, Matt, I thought Zeke played well. I mean, I thought he kind of saddled up today and went in there and got the tough yards. I mean, Pollard hit it in there a couple of times, so they did play the fullback in some. He just kind of, I mean, he looks kind of uncomfortable at times and really unsure of where to go, but I'm not sure if that's schematically what's going on or what was going on with New England. But I thought the running backs gave you a B effort as well.
All right, good stuff all the way around as the Cowboys have to regroup. They have to get ready to go again. Got Buffalo coming in here for the Thanksgiving. Strerch, you saw the Eagles get beat today. Do you have any better feel for this team at all? Do you still think they're going to win the NFC East, or did today really discourage you from thinking this team could get going?
Yeah, I still think they're a 10-win team. I think they can. I think absolutely they can win the East. I think it's going to come down to, obviously they're going to have to go to Philadelphia and win. But I mean, Philadelphia minus Jackson, I mean, has a bunch of receivers that can't run out of sight in a leap year. So, I mean, that ought to match up well with corners that don't like to get their hands on the football. That ought to be a hell of a pillow fight to decide who's going to win the East.
What did you think that, now he was having trouble getting that glove on. Did that almost take you back to the OJ trial a little bit?
No, Matt, it didn't, but I'm not really.
Okay. No. I just thought they were trying to get that glove on. It was a little difficult. Okay.
And you were waiting for Johnny Cochran to stand up and say, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. I got it, Matt. And you must not have been able to sleep down there in Waco. You must have been putting on some old television or something late at night, rewatching some of that OJ trial stuff.
I'm sorry. I hope things go.
I'm sorry you brought that up to me, too. I'm busy tonight, and you're wanting to talk to me about the damn OJ glove. Is that it, Mosley?
Hey,
Are we done?
We're done. Hey, appreciate everything. Thank you very much.
Sorry to bother you tonight, pal.
All my best. There he goes. Glenn Strerch Smith. Boy, he slams the phone. Did not appreciate some OJ talk. I just could not. Boy, they could barely get that glove on. I never felt like those gloves were real comfortable with with Dak Prescott. All right, there he is, Glenn Strerch Smith. All right, Ed, as we record this, it's getting late on the East Coast. It's time. We don't want the hotel food, the hotel catering there to shut down. I want you to have the opportunity to go down there and have that Marriott meal you've you've worked so hard and I think you've earned. But as we look forward and look to this Thanksgiving Day battle, we'll be spread out across the country covering this game a little bit. But this is it's feeling like, even though right now it does seem like the Eagles can be trusted to lose games, it is feeling like a very, very important game. I'm not going to call it a must-win, but you the thing you can't have is to let the Eagles get even with you heading into, a possible, thinking about that game later in the season. You can't have that thing being, playing for everything going to Philly.
Well, the Eagles obviously have endured their own crisis today, and we don't know how injured Carson Wentz is. It's not unexpected that the Eagles would lose back-to-back games to the Patriots and the Seahawks. They're two of the best teams in the NFL. But what's disconcerting if you're Philadelphia is they scored 9 points today and they committed 5 turnovers. And Carson Wentz is now 3-8 against teams that entered the game with a winning record over the past 2 seasons. Now, the reason it's kind of interesting that Jerry Jones is lashing out at his coaching staff and expressing true frustration for the first time, even though his team's still technically in first place in their division, which means if they win out, they win the division, they're in the playoffs. But I would caution you that before anybody counts out the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC East, you have to keep in mind that they're now about to enter playing a stretch of games against some really woeful opponents.
Yes.
In fact, before they play the Cowboys, they play the Dolphins, the Redskins, and the Giants, and all of those teams have 2-9 records.
Wow, that is, it's the weakest schedule or easiest, whatever you want to call it, in the NFL. You're exactly right. Down the stretch. Well, Ed, you've done superb work today, and in some tough conditions out there. Appreciate you braving those. Thought you had I think your apparel worked out nicely for you, and it'll be nicer. It'll be a little, I think, Thanksgiving. No matter what it is outside, you will not have to compete with those elements because Jerry will probably have the roof closed for that one. So let me wish you an early happy Thanksgiving from Frito Nation Productions and for Hudson Financial Group and everybody. Ed, I just want to say good night to you.
Thanks, good night, and I look forward to covering the Thanksgiving Day fiasco against the Buffalo Bills.
Thanksgiving Day fiasco, I love it. Ed Werder from a hotel. We're not going to give out the hotel, even though, I guess by the time this comes out, you could call Ed, but we won't give that out. Ed always does great work for it. Ed, good night. Have a great sleep.
Good night, boys.
And we'll see you when you get back. There he goes, Ed Werder. And my parting shot here, I would just say, don't be shocked. And I haven't talked to anybody that has indicated this, but there may be, last year, a trade was made and a firing of an offensive coordinator happened. And all of that was the impetus on a late season run. The way Jerry was talking led me to believe there could be a firing as early as tomorrow. And so do not be shocked if this special teams coach, Keith O'Quinn, is let go tomorrow. I am, again, I'm not hearing that. I'm just feeling like that's where that thing was headed, because that's the kind of anger Jerry was displaying, even though Jason is very close to that coach. Well, Frito, this has been a long one, but I think that was appropriate. I think it's appropriate. I think we might have gone past the 1 hour mark, may have gone like an hour and 20 minutes. Thanks for Ross Hudson head of research, doing a great job. And then, of course, Frito Friedman, Mark Frito Friedman, the head of Frito Nation Productions, live from his studios in far North Dallas. I am Matt Mosley. Good night, everybody.
targets have been hung. You're praying for your daughter, lighting candles for your son. They're living in the city now, you don't see them anymore. This year will not be like the ones before.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.